Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah al-Alamin. Akibatun lil mustaqim. Allah fi kul umri esta'in. Allah fi kulli umri amji. Innahu rabbi ladhi yuhibbul mu'min. Ladhi yusalli wa ibadatuhu wa salawatuhu nafil. Muhammadan huwa Sayyidina Makbubana inhu kana Rasulun Nabiyan salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamuhu alayhi. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh lil ikwani wa akhwati fi din wa salamu ala mani taba'ahuda lil ikwani wa akhwati fi Afrika, Europa, Asia wa America wa Indies wa kulli makan. Halim wa salam bikum. How you doing, my dear brothers and sisters? Today, we will conclude, inshallah ta'ala, about the beautiful story of Queen Sheba or Queen Makeda or Queen Saba, and with our prophet Suleiman, alayhi salatu salam. And we left off on verse 33 here days ago, last week. And before that, our brother Talib had asked a question in the chat, which was last week, about Saba and the meaning. Well, we know, and I couldn't answer it at the time because it was ahead of the, a little ahead of the story. But we know that Saba is a common name that is used here in especially in Morocco, but in the Arabic world. And we know this that it has a variety of different meanings, soft breeze and so forth and so on. There are also offshoots of this word like Sabra, which means a soft breeze in the morning. And so this name has connotations. Now, the Quranic term for this talks about a city, and it's not really a definition, but it's the name of a city. And this name has been attributed to Queen of Sheba, Saba, but still it's more of a city, a state, that that was existing then as before we know as Yemen, but now we know at those days it was known as Saba. And also I wanted to go over, if you saw in the chat room, I pulled up the names. So did you have the names so you can do your research? And the name that I favor myself personally is Makeda, because why? It's in Ge'ez and it's Amharic, and it means the beautiful one. And and also in Hebrew, it means beautiful. That's the name I prefer to call her. Now, when we look at the word Sheba itself, you remember this basically for the Africans born in America, African Americans. We used to, a long time ago in my generation, the generation before, we used to name our children the biblical names of the Old Testament. One of the names used to be Sheila. It's supposed to be Sheila, but we call it Sheila. But this is the names of Hebrew that we used to. Now we got away from that. We don't name our children these biblical names now. We just name our children after the British and Irish and all this other thing. But Sheba has a variety of different meanings to it. It's an offshoot also of Bathsheba. Remember her? Bathsheba. Remember her? She was the seventh daughter, and she was the mother of Suleiman. And so Sheba is kind of an offshoot of that because it means a daughter of oath, but also the Bathsheba also means a daughter of oath as well. So, and you remember she was the mother of Solomon, and the story of David and Bathsheba and what happened in that. I don't have to go in that right now. That's a story in itself, and it's lessons to it as far as all Muslims But here we'll be concentrating on the Queen Sheba, Mlkeda, and Suleiman. Assalamu alaikum, Salam. How you doing, my dear brother? So anyway, one of the important factors here that we have to look at when we look at this is that Subhanahu wa ta'ala is always behind the scenes, and he doesn't take a day off. There's no 6 days and he's rest on Sunday. Because the human being are always involved and entangled in some type of intrigue of some sort. And he has angels to govern and to look out, to record, even though he doesn't need that, but he have them employed for a reason. So when we look at cases like this, we see two brilliant human beings. We have the Prophet Suleiman or Solomon, and then we have our beautiful ancestral African sister, Sheba, Mlkeda, or Saba, whatever name you want to pick, it's okay. And so again, when we look at this particular story, we look at how the chess match and how this came about. And remember something about this hope pole, this bird, it's a special bird, came about. Remember, it was said in the earlier passages that we talked about in the Quran. Well, it was out. It skipped away from Suleiman, and he has all control. Remember, he was given power over animals, insects, the jinn, and so forth and so on. He knew this bird was missing, and this bird who went out, but he redeemed himself, and he came back to tell Prophet Solomon, Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam, about this kingdom. And so we went through that. And so now we know through 33 that he is now well aware of the kingdom of Saba in Arabic and in the Quran. He's well aware of that. And remember something I gave you at the last, our queen, our ancestral sister, Sheba, Mlkeda, she had received a letter. And this letter was very profound, as we went over that. And it had a profound effect on her, and she had made these comments. And I'll say that in a minute, talk about that, to rehash over that. But I want to give you something that you have to understand. The hadiths of the Prophet, ﷺ, he's clear, and he talks about the animals that are protected, that we, even today, is still a running order. We're not allowed to kill bees, ants, sparrows, and hawks. Even though today Muslims are doing this without even any fanfare, they kill them at will. And this is wrong for them to do such a thing, but they do this anyway. And it's wrong. And we know that the hopo is one of these birds that you cannot kill. So when the Prophet ﷺ had threatened him for leaving without permission, he redeemed himself. But since he redeemed himself, he could not take his life. Subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't let him do that. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Isaac. How you doing, dear brother? And so we are forbidden to kill this hopo, and we're forbidden to kill the ants, sparrows, hawks, and bees. We can't do it. So this hadith is sahih. So it is authentic. So we can't do that. Now, going back to our dear sister, our Queen Sheba, she had received this letter from Solomon. And you remember we talked about in the verses here, 30, where I gave you a formula. I talked about the formula of the Muslims. When the Muslim writes a letter, because again, Islam is a living religion. It's not a weekend religion. It's a living religion. And it covers all aspects of life. Even the letters that we write, we must follow certain guidelines. This makes us different than everybody else. And remember, I explained to you when we start our letter off, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. This is how Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam started this letter to her. It was profound because she got this letter and it was profound the way it was written. It was written in such a language that it moved her. And Bismillah Rahman Rahim, this is the formula that we use as Muslims. Of course, we got away from that. We don't do that anymore. But as I told you, I try to follow this by when I write my letters, I try to use, especially to Muslims, I use Bismillah Rahman Rahim. But to the non-believers, you don't really have to do that. But to the brothers and sisters, you should do it. And then remember, I gave you the formula. The first half is you introduce this letter is from you to whoever, to Muhammad. And then you go into veneration of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then your second paragraph, you go into veneration of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And then from that point, remember, I told you the third part of it is if you're going to quote a verse of the Quran and use that in your letter, then you should say Amabat, and then you give the Quranic verse and so forth in your letter. But if you're not going to use that, you don't need to use Amabat. You don't have to do that. It's not required. So I wanted to get that out again. But this letter was profound to her. And remember, number 34, where, again, this is chapter 27 for those who didn't remember it. And we had verse 27, we had verse 31. And the scholars talked about this particular verse as well, what it actually meant by Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam when he says, be not arrogant against me, and but come to me in submission to the true religion. And again, this was, again, Suleiman asking her, don't frown, don't do this and that. Come to me in submission and whatnot. Now, there's a lot of heavy tafsir there about this. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Amina. And there's a lot of tafsir in the Quran, and a lot of it's beautiful about what happened here and some of the things that transpired. And the letter, we know, left her mesmerized. It really left her mesmerized. She was really, really hit by it. And so she summons her council, and she talked to her council about this letter. And you remember last week, I left off with talking about how clever and ingenious our ancestral sister was. And she had made a comment to the council that said, I'm going to send these gifts. If he accepts these gifts, we go to make war against him. Because you remember something, any woman, as I told last week, anytime a sister is dealing with a strange man, she should be skeptical. She should not believe right offhand anything that is said from me or any other man. She should check it out. And this is what with her, she was trying to weigh her options. But as brilliant and as smart and ingenious as our queen was, she said, okay, she told her council, if he accepted, we make war against him. But if he doesn't accept it, we know he's a prophet, we will follow him. These is beautiful, wise, and clever words from our Queen Sheba. So now she summons her council, and they bartered and talked and so forth and so on. They didn't know what exactly to do, at this time. And she kind of made some references that what she would do if they go to war and what the council would recommend, would she go with that or would she make her own decision? Well, the council ruled basically, we won't do anything. We'll go by your lead. We'll go by what you say. So she decided at this time, she says, okay, I think what I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to go to visit, and I'm going to see who this man is, his religion. Because in this letter, he was asking her to accept Islam. And you got to remember something. All the prophets were Muslims. They all submitted. If you understand what Muslim is, I don't want to go through that class. Islam. There's root words to this, but essentially it means submission. And remember last week I gave you something of Arabic. I was talking about myself when I left Christianity, and say Amina, she come to me and she says she doesn't know me. She says, "How you doing, brother? You're here. You're new here to Morocco. What is your religion?" I could say to be emphatic, "Innani استسلمت" in Arabic. "Innani استسلمت," meaning I submitted to the will of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And so here, our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, told her basically to submit, come and submit. So she decided two things. One, to submit a proposal and wait for the decision of the queen. They did. I'm talking about the council. The council did this. They waited to see what she was going to do. So she decided again to go back to send these gifts and see how he operated. So they came back. Now, when they came back with all the gifts, and he was taken back by these gifts. And he told these in the tafsir, he told the emissaries of the Queen Sheba that he is not going to be sidetracked by these gifts, that he's going to chastise them for since they were mushrikeen, meaning they assigned partners to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. They were, remember, worshiping the sun according to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He says in here that when the bird found him, the hopo, remember he found him worshiping the sun worshiping. And he reported it to Suleiman, alayhi salatu wasalam. Because again, Suleiman, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave him power over many things, over the jinn, over the birds, the insects. So the hopo came to him and told him what he found. And so this is how we know about this situation about in Saba, because what the hopo had told our prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And so remember, chapter in now 36, the chess match between Suleiman and our Queen Sheba began to take form, where again the gifts were given and so forth and so on, and they waited to play back. Now, when they came back, again, as I said, they came back and gave the gifts back to their queen. They returned back to Sheba. Solomon, alayhi salatu wasalam, gave a stern warning, which was interesting because the Muslims use that today, in yesteryears when they were dealing with an enemy. And here, Solomon told them that he wanted them to go back and to submit, or there be war. There be the sword. See, so now this is weighing on our queen. The Queen Sheba said, "Oh, we have something here. We got a man. We know him to be a prophet because he returned the gifts." And what he said was that. But did he actually mean he was going to make war? That's contention. But he gave that directive. And you remember something, Muslims. You remember something. Many of you don't know the history of Islam. When we begin to have fights, when Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave our authority to our prophet to start to defend themselves after a decade or more of struggling, being killed and persecuted, now they were going out. Now they're building the kingdom and so forth and so on. And our brilliant general, Khalid bin Walid, Saif Allah Maslud, him, one of the greatest, probably the greatest general we know, because he never lost a battle. And he would go and give a directive to the enemy. He would always tell them that you have three conditions. You accept. If you didn't want to do this, then you pay the tax, and you pay a tax saying that you can practice your religion. And you'll fall under the umbrella of the Khalifa. And third, if you said no to those two, then it'd be the safe. The safe is a sword. So that's kind of in this line that our prophet Suleiman gave to Queen Sheba. So uh, now we get to the point where the queen realized she's dealing with a prophet. And so she decided, okay, I'm going to go and see this man. So she gave a directive that she had a throne, a special throne, and she had this throne hidden behind chambers upon chambers where people, and guarded so people could not take it. And so the tafsir said that she decided, okay, I'm going to take 12,000 soldiers with me and her trusted advisors to go see the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Suleiman. But the jockeying began. Our Prophet Suleiman then entrusted one of the jinn. They said he was a big jinn. He entrusted him to go take the throne. That's right, to take the throne within the wink of an eye, to take it and bring it to him, which he did. So he went and got it and brought the throne to Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam. He did this not because he wanted to steal something. The man was already rich. The prophet, he was rich. He was, as a matter of fact, he was, Akra was over over dunya, meaning that he preferred heaven over that of the dunya, because he could have took these wealthy gifts from our queen, but he didn't. And so it shows you that his mindset is that of subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he knew that he said that what subhanahu wa ta'ala gives as far as gifts is far greater than that what any other human being could give him. So he ordered the jinn to go take this throne. He took it. It's interesting. He took it and brought it to Suleiman. This is a jinn. So Suleiman had it. When the queen finally came, he began to talk to her and so forth and so on. Then he went and got and said, you know what this is? She said, yeah, this looks like my throne. He explained it as his throne because he wanted to make a point to show her, to prove to her that he was a prophet. He was a prophet of subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi in Arabic, and that he was a Nabi Allah, meaning a prophet of Allah, and that he had this power granted to him by subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wanted to prove this to Sheba. She was convinced of his prophethood already before she even came, but he wanted to make sure that she understood that he had it. This is not arrogance, our brothers and sisters. This is not arrogance on his part, because he was trying to make a point. He was trying to bring people to the right way, and he knew that this kingdom has potential, and it was not far from him. And not only that, they were worshiping the sun, and they could be an adversary in the future. Our prophet Suleiman knew this, so he was careful and meticulous in how he dealt with her. So that's how it went. Now, verse 38, again, the throne here, the issue of the throne was not due to jewels and status. We talked about that. He wanted to show again his power, what he had, that his prophethood was bestowed by subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said that. So the throne of Mlekah was brought before Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam before the arrival of Queen Mlekah or Sheba. And this was a testament of subhanahu wa ta'ala's love for Solomon. This is the proof. This is the proof he loved him. He gave him this kind of power. And so in the hadiths, they talk about this segment, and they're talking about how our prophet Suleiman took the dunya as down below that of the akhirah, which all of us supposed to be this way. We're supposed to be seeking the heaven and not seeking worldly advances. Yes, we live in the world, and you must do what you have to do in the world, but you must seek the higher, which is subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's everlasting. The earth is not. You are in a short period of time here, and that's all. But unfortunately, today we have Muslims who don't feel this way. They feel that the dunya is more important than the akhirah, and they feel that all they have to do is before they die is they make some declaration of some sort, and everything is forgiven. It doesn't work like that. So, and this hadith talked about that, and And here's what this hadith said that's very interesting. Subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling our prophet, he said this. He said, "Oh, my servants, if the first of you and the last of you, mankind and jinn alike, were all but to be pious as the most pious among you, that would not add to my dominion in the slightest." Subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about this. "Oh, my servants, if you first of you and the last of you, mankind and jinn alike, were to be as evil as most evil one among you, that would not detract my dominion in the slightest. O my servants, these are deeds which I am recording for you, and I'll judge you according to them. And so whoever finds something good, let him praise Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever finds otherwise, let him blame no one but himself." This is Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, do think about this. This is very cleverly written by Subhanahu wa ta'ala and related by our Prophet ﷺ. This is a stern warning for all of us. He's telling you our good deeds and our bad deeds will be written. The good deeds is on one side, and the bad deeds are something that we have created. Again, smoking, drinking, fornicating, not praying, all of this, all of the devices that the human beings are known for. So we should be very, very careful about this, because you have a warning about that. And so as we go now to we'll start moving forward. Our queen is now treated as a head of state. She sit next to Solomon when Solomon made decisions, and when he had court, she was there with him. She did not treat him. He did not treat her in disgust. This is where we part with some of the racist Christian so-called scholars who basically condemned her as a concubine. And it's wrong. And we know, and we have other documents that are used, and I'm going to go to that in a minute, but I have to give you something about that before I get to that. So the other parts of this, we go to 38. Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, again, this is chapter 27, verse 38. Subhanahu wa ta'ala said, he said to his own men, "Yea, chiefs, which of you can bring me her throne before they come to me in submission?" We talked about that because I want to show you the power that Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave our prophet Suleiman, a lot of power. And he had the power over the jinn, and the jinn had a name. Ifrit was his name that was given to him, who went to go get this throne of Sheba. And Sheba was coming, and they went behind Sheba and took the throne, talking about the jinn, to bring him to Solomon. Then 40, Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Said one who had knowledge of the book, I will bring it to thee within the twinkle of an eye." Then when Solomon saw it placed firmly before him, he said, "This is by grace of my Lord, to test me whether I am grateful or ungrateful. And if I am ungrateful, truly his gratitude is a gain for his own soul. But if any of us ungrateful, truly my Lord is free of all needs, supreme in honor." So this is what was said by Subhanahu wa ta'ala about that. And then 41 was again, the throne was shown to her as a power, to show his power. And then 42, Subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "So when he arrived, she was asked, 'Is this my throne?'" This is what our queen said to Solomon. I can imagine she had it locked up behind many chambers, and she had guards to guard it to make sure nobody got to the throne. Here she, after probably it took, I would think, probably a month traveling to get there, maybe a little bit more. And she comes there, and here's a throne, here's a throne, right in front of her. I can imagine what how she felt. And she said, it was just like this, and the knowledge was bestowed on us in advance of this, and we have it submitted to Allah. So now she saw the power, and she gave her declaration that she was now a Muslimah. Alhamdulillah, wa rabbil alameen. So she came to Islam, and she came to Islam, and she followed Islam, and she went back and she ruled under the law of the Torah, because you got to remember something. Remember, I gave you a little lesson last week talking about this, the Torah, and remember the Hebrew. I gave you a little bit of Hebrew and whatnot, and you remember something. The law of the Torah is halakha. Remember, this is the equivalent to the Sharia Islamiyah in Arabic, but this is the Hebrew. So she enforced that. And this is what Suleiman enforced. He enforced the Torah. He didn't enforce anything else. He enforced the Torah, and that's what he used, by which, and the halakha was, again, crimes, punishment, ordinances, marriage, rulings of all sorts. So this is what happened. And she came to Islam. Now, my brother says, we're going to get into a part, but I have to preface this because I want our brothers and sisters to understand something, because I'm going to get into a historical document. And I want the Muslims to understand where I'm coming from as far as this document. If any of you have read the Kebra Nagas, I did this in college. It was translated from Ge'ez, because I can't read or speak Ge'ez, which is very similar to Hebrew. I cannot read it, but it was translated. This is a book that was written in about the 13th, 14th century, and it gave the chronicles of the son of Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam and Queen Sheba, rahimahullah. Okay? Yes, they had a son. Now, this gives a more in-depth look at it. I'm reading this only as a historical document. This is not supplementing the Quran, nor is it over the Quran. I'm not giving it as true the word as that of the Quran. I would say Allah alam in this as I talk to you about it. So I give you only what our brothers from Habasha have said. These are Orthodox Christians who go by this. And so I'll give you this story because most of you might have heard it, but many of our Black brothers and sisters in the United States don't know the full story of what's happened here. And the Kebra Nagas gives the ins and out of what actually happened between our Prophet ﷺ and Queen Sheba. And then the birth of their son, Menelik. And matter of fact, let me give you something about this. I was so moved by this story. I was so moved about this particular story in history that covers all three religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. All are affected by this particular story. All three. And I named my son after Menelik, the son of Queen Sheba and our Prophet ﷺ. I named him Menelik, my oldest son. I gave him that name because I was so impressed with this story and how it read, and I was impressed what happened in Habasha. So I named my son. Because I wanted to give him some name that will uplift him. And so when he gets older, he will follow under that name. And so I told you, all my children, I gave them African names. I gave all my children. My son is Menelik, and I have my oldest daughter, Marama, and my other daughter is Rashida, and then I have another daughter by the name of Chinara. Then my other sons is Samari, and then my other son is Tafari. So all my children, I named African names after some personality of some sort because I wanted them to follow in those footsteps. I'm just trying to give you that to show you, even though I talk about what I say, I preached it a long time ago, and I went by it. So the Kebra Nages goes into the story, and it talks about how Suleiman treated her. And now it gets interesting. Very interesting. King Solomon, Suleiman alayhi began to fall in love with her. Now, she was there for about a month, according to what the Kebra Nages told about this story, that she was there 1 month. And you think about this. We men, okay? Now, you have a woman, a beautiful, wise, a very, upright woman. And she's a queen, and she's beautiful. And here she is next to your throne here. Now, we're men, right? And, we're attracted to women. So he is a man. He was a man. He was a man. And he began to see the virtues of this beautiful, beautiful African sister. And let's go back again. Now, this ain't no black and white thing. Remember something. Our prophet, ﷺ, told what he was. Remember, I told you he was kind of like the first of the what you call the black nationalists, so to speak, because he said he was black. He told that in Hebrew. Now, of course, many of the scholars of Christianity, the Tubab scholars, changed that to mean dark, and then they put a curse on top of him on top of that, which I went through that last week. I won't go through that again. But if you read the Hebrew text, it's nothing like that. It's totally different. So anyway, he began to fall for our queen. Now, let me also preface this. Now, you remember it was written that not in Islamic, but in the in other books talking about tafsir of this relationship, they were saying that Solomon had 700 concubines, and they called him a lover of women. This is what they said about our prophet ﷺ. Allah alam. I'll say that again, because only Subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And so he began to think about her, which men do. And so he made his first proposal to her to have intimate relations. And our dear sister, Queen Sheba, said no. And she said, I'm a queen, and that I'm chaste. I'm going to use that. I'm not going to use some of the vernacular that we use. I won't dirty her up by using any words like virgin and stuff. I don't want, not for a queen, not for our ancestral sister like this, of this kind of grade. No, she was a chaste woman. Chaste woman, what we use in the Quran, Subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that. Chaste woman, meaning she was untouched. Okay, that's basically, she's chaste. So she told him no. She politely told him, I cannot. If I go back to my people, I've had relations and so on, it would be a dire effect. It'd bring shame. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother, King Haki El, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum. Now, this relationship was starting to blossom more and more and more. As she began to see how studious, according to Kebra Nages, how studious Suleiman was. He was studious about his prayer, as a Muslim should be. And she saw how he worshiped. She saw his ablution, how he took care. He saw the cleanliness and so forth of his palace. So she began to see and understand what was happening with the Tawheed and the oneness of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she began to see the virtue of it and the power of it. And so now you got to remember also, our king, okay, King Solomon, ﷺ, was our prophet, was in a big palace. And of course, if he had concubines, those concubines would not necessarily be very close to him. He would have a inner palace, and he have an outer palace. That's where the maids and the concubines and so forth would sleep. She didn't sleep. She slept in the inner part of the palace, which was close to him. So Solomon, alayhi salatu wasalam, devised a plan, clever plan, where he told his cooks to put a special meal that was salty, full of bitter herbs, and a lot of other different meats and so forth and so on. It would bring the people to thirst. And he said, he told in a decree that he was going to make this meal, and he wanted nobody to get extra water. Nobody to go get water. That was his decree. That was in the inner circle. And if anybody violated that, then they would have a punishment. Even though she, Queen Sheba, our ancestral sister, was a queen, but she was still under his palace and under his direction, because she was inside the inner palace. So she had to abide by the rules, right? So our brother, our ancestral prophet, Suleiman, devised this meal. She ate it. So she complained about, she wanted water. She wanted to refresh, and she couldn't. So the only water she could find was where? In the bedchambers of our prophet, Suleiman. This is according to the Kebra Neges, okay? Which means the glory to the kings. That's what it means in Geese. And in Harik, because that's what they were using at the time, not Geese. And so when Suleiman, he waited, he played like he was asleep. He let her go get the water, and she quenched her thirst. So he told her, he said, hey, look, you violated my directive, and you're here under my protection and under my rules. You have to follow the rules of my land. So that's how cleverly he did. So she agreed at this time to go with him. And then according to the Kebra Neges, she began to sleep with him. Now, there's reports that say that they actually married, because you have to think about something. And this is where the Tubab, the racist Tubab, okay, racist. I'm not talking, not all the historians are racist, the whites, Tubabs, they're not. But many of them said this shows that he made her into a concubine, meaning he threw her out with the 700 that's in the outer palace. That's ridiculous. It didn't happen like that. It's other reports that said, and many of the scholars from Habasha agreed that she was married. They married in a ceremony, because how? She already told him she's chaste. So if she goes to sleep with this man, even though he's a king of a kingdom, and they don't marry, you see, it doesn't make sense. How would she would not give herself up for that? So it's said by the scholars of Habasha is Ethiopia, that they married, and then she slept with him, and they had a son by the name of Menelik, as I explained to you. And the rest of the story talks about the cleverness of how Suleiman, he won her over. Very clever. And so now she goes back to her kingdom with the baby, because she's pregnant. She's pregnant with the son of Suleiman, alayhi salatu wasalam. And she had the son. And so the son grew up, and then he finally returned back to see his father. His father knew him immediately, and he embraced him, and he loved him, and he treated him with special kindness. This is what the Kebra Neges have said, to the point to where they said that Suleiman wanted to hand over his reign, his kingdom, over to his son Menelik. So he saw something in him that he loved him dearly. He loved him dearly. And, and Menelik, actually, this word actually also means a son of a king, something like this, I believe. It's a son of a king. I can't recall right offhand. So now he loved his son deeply, dearly. But Menelik, he had to go back because his mother wanted him to come back and run the kingdom. And you remember something at this time, this kingdom, this is where we differ tremendously with the racist Tuba historians who try to separate Africa from the, so-called Middle East today. And I told you before, I don't like that term Middle East, but that's the way it's brought up. But they try to make a separation. They try to make her lily white. That's why when you go to Google today, you pull up Sheba, and what do you find? 99% of the pictures of her in drawings, they show modern times, she's a white woman. That's we know that's ridiculous. Okay, that's absolutely ridiculous, because we know her empire had to be inside Africa, and there was no white Tuba woman running Ghana or any other place or any other part of Africa. That's ridiculous. So we get that out of the way. We know her to be a black woman because we know where she was from, and their kingdom stretched from Habasha, which now not the modern day Habasha, because there was no boundaries, and in part of Habasha was the area that we know as Yemen today. So his son Menelik came back, and they said that he took with him the Ark of Covenant, which is cherished in the Christians and Jews. And they said they still have it hidden today in Habasha today. That's how much he thought of his son. And so, and you remember the Meneliks ruled for, I think, almost what they say 3,000 years until Haile Selassie took over. So there was Meneliks after Menelik. Each one, their son, they named their sons Menelik, the Menelik the fifth, so forth and so on. So that's the gist of the story of what happened here. And my brother and sister, I hope you do some research. I advise all of you, if you can, to go get the book, and you can get it downloaded now. It's translated. The Kebra Nagas, and get this, the Glory to Kings. And for historical document, read it. And you Muslims, I would advise you also read it. There's nothing wrong with it, because you're not supplementing the Quran. You're not going against the Quran. You listen to a story from what the people wrote. There's nothing wrong with that, to learn about someone else's history. You got to remember that. And you got to remember something else too. Those brothers at this time were under Tawheed. They believed in the oneness of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were not mushrikeen. You got to remember that, because they were following who? Suleiman, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was not a mushrik. He believed in Tawheed, Allah. So they did too. And so you read the book, but I would suggest highly that anything that you come out from that, you always put in your mind, Allah alam. Subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That's the best way you can do it. This is what we're supposed to say as Muslims, in the event of things that we don't know and things that could be so or it may not be so, but we leave it up to Subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this judgment. See, so we always say this, especially after we write documents as well. You can, not letters per se, but when you write documents, you also conclude with that, Allah alam, because that way you hand it over to Subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're saying you don't know everything, that he knows best. And so you put that and gives you the protection, because so you don't have the arrogance of saying, well, everything me. That way you put this here at the end of your statement, and it protects you from arrogance. So being accused of arrogance, and none of us want to be, as Muslims, be accused of that. So my brothers and sisters, this is the end of the story here about Solomon and alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Queen of Sheba, Mlekة. And so if there's anything anybody has to say, because this is a very technical story, and there's other accounts given by racist Tubab historians, I would back off that. Because if it didn't come from the Quran, it didn't come out from the Old Testament, it didn't come from the Kebra Nagas, I would get away from it. Because when you see a book or you see a title and you see a European woman with blonde hair, you better question that book and that historian right away. Because again, how could this woman be lily white? Because in those days they did not have, quote unquote, the Tubab was not running rampant through there, especially that far south, past in Messer. there's no way it could be that she come over and take over a kingdom. It's impossible. It didn't happen, my brothers and sisters. It did not happen. So that's the story. My brother, yes, my brother King Haki El said, Allah over nefs and shirk is istafar. Yes, what makes a man and woman. Yes, we're Muslims, and again, we can make mistakes, and we also always ask for that forgiveness from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what, again, makes us different than everybody else, because we're also always asking for forgiveness, because we know we're human beings and we're weak. And so we have to do that. And this story here encompasses, again, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And it's very, very important. And I'm a stickler about this in this regard. Our African sisters who are inclined to be Christians and Hebrews and Jews, you should look at naming your daughters after our beautiful queen. You take one of those names. You take Sheba, which is Hebrew, or you take Mlekah, which is Geese, Amharic, and you take Saba, which is Arabic. Because why? This was an extraordinary woman. You want our sisters, we should go back to naming our children those names, those African and African Asiatic names. We did this. I remember I knew people, girls by the name of Shayla. Okay, we call Sheila. Remember Deborah. Remember those names? This is Hebrew. We used to name our children, and we had boys by the name of Samuel, Solomon. We used to have that. We stopped that. We left that and followed the Tubab and started naming our children after the Tubab in England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales and all that, in France. We went away from the Hebrew, which is an Afro-Asiatic language. But these names have a meaning. Shayla, Bathsheba, Sheba. I mean, all these names. There's other names. All of them are beautiful. We should go back. Our sisters should go back and name our daughters that. Don't name your daughter Bansi. Don't name your daughter some other Lakeisha and all these other names and these Russian names. Stop. Get away from that, my brothers and sisters. This story here, this is a beautiful ancestral sister. Our ancestral sister from Africa. And she had a beautiful name that had a meaning. Mlekah. Mlekah means the beautiful one. The beautiful one. That's right. It's a beautiful name for a woman. And you name our daughters that. This is nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful name. If those who are inclined to be Christians and Jews, this is a good name that you name your daughter. This is beautiful. So with that said, my brothers and sisters, this story here concludes. And I was remiss to have to talk about it because I love the story from way back. And especially when I got to college, I finally got a hold of the real good documents. And I came across this Kebra Nages. At this time, I was not a Muslim at that time. I was quote unquote Christian. And I came across this and I read it. And I was impressed with the story. And now as a Muslim reading through the Quran, looking at the tafsir, I'm even more impressed with it. Because Subhanahu wa Ta'ala found it as also as a lesson. Because in that lesson, it gives you who the Prophet ﷺ was, his power over the jinn and animals and insects and birds. He had that power. And also it was a showing how we're to get people, we come across people that we do not know. It's our obligation to try to sell Islam to them. Of course, we have to be very careful how we do it. This is a special situation, but we should promote the religion. This is the way it should be. And so we have a lot of what I would say wise counsel in this particular chapter of the Quran, like in all in the Quran. And like I say, when you look at this this particular chapter, it's beautiful. It's got many different things in it, and for us to learn. And Muslims, again, you must learn the Quran. Okay, from the first chapter to the last chapter, you should learn it because there's beautiful stories in it, and there's wide wisdom in it as well. And one of these stories like this is definitely something for the Black man and Black woman to see how history is, and that you're not cursed by God. The Muslims, we don't believe this, but we do have Christians and some probably Jews to believe somehow or another they're cursed by God. You are not, my brothers and sisters. Don't take that. That's why I told you to learn the book. And I will advise on this as well. The Hebrews, I would advise you highly to go back to the Torah and learn it in the original text. Stay away from the Talmud. The Talmud is created by man. The Torah is created by subhanahu wa ta'ala, given to Moses alayhi salatu salam. Stay away from the Talmud. It has some racist entries in it because it's by man. Stay away from that. I don't follow it. Matter of fact, to be honest, I never studied the Talmud. I saw some portions of it and it's sick in my stomach. I didn't want to. I got away from it. I studied the Torah, as I told you before. I studied it in length because I know this, because this came from the prophet who was given this by subhanahu wa ta'ala, the prophet Musa or Moses alayhi salatu salam. So I studied that. The Talmud is written by men. And so I would advise you don't follow it. If you want to study it, no problem. Me, I couldn't, because after I read some of the things what they said about people being Black, I was taken back by it. So in a nutshell, my brothers and sisters, I hope we get something out of this. And we learn from this. And we learn that subhanahu wa ta'ala has his plan. And his plan is what he ordains it to be. And we as African people and Muslims, we should also be wary of this. And remember that subhanahu wa ta'ala has put 1/3 of the Quran in history. So you can discern from it and learn from it. So you got to remember that, my brothers and sisters. Always keep that in mind, you know. And yeah, my brother Isaac said we must do better. You're right. We must do better. All of us. I don't care if you're Muslim or Hebrew or Christian. The Christians have a myriad of problems because we have the racist element of the Tubabs who control it, and then the Jewish part, we have also the same type of man who have went away from the scriptures and they are controlling, Judaism. And we know the story, what they're doing to Gaza, and many of them don't even follow the Torah. They only follow some portions of it. Many of them follow the Talmud. So we have to be very careful, and we don't follow their lead. The Muslims, you follow the Quran and the Sunnah. And subhanahu wa ta'ala said to us that he would not let this book be corrupted, because the Jews and the Christian, they corrupted their books. We know that. But the Muslims, we have not done that. We just have Muslims who don't know the Quran and don't read it. But it doesn't mean that the book has been corrupted. It has not been, because there's no outstanding books out there that copied from the Quran and people following. If they are following that, these people are disbelievers. They should not be followed, and they should not be heard. And you should move away from them. Our brother here, King, said that go through the earth and see who precede you in nations before our time. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah causes birth, death, and resurrection. Yes, we know this to be called the qadr, or karma, if you want to say in English. We know what he said here to be the qadr of Allah. And so we know that, and he ordains, and he knows the qadr of the child that's being created, and what's going to happen to this child from its birth to its death. He already has decreed it. So we know this, and it's part of the qadr of Allah. So my brothers and sisters, I'm hoping today that you got something that wasn't too mundane for you, but I wanted to give you this to this beautiful story of a relationship that happened between a king who was a prophet, Salam Suleiman, and our dear beloved Queen Sheba. And hope subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses her, because she died as a Muslimah. And so you, as a Muslim, you have no problem saying your prayers for her, because she was a Muslimah. You got to remember that she was under Tawheed at the time. And remember what subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that if you followed Abraham, you were not a mushrik. So she followed that lead. So she's not a mushrikah. She was a Muslimah. She accepted Tawheed. So you go ahead and say your prayers for her. There's nothing wrong with that. And to learn her history, and to relish and even pray for her, because she died as a Muslimah. That's what we know her to be. Because if she was died as a disbeliever, we would know about this, because subhanahu wa ta'ala would have mentioned it in the Quran that she fell from this. But we know that her country, after she passed, fell from that. We know that, and we went through that, where subhanahu wa ta'ala punished in Surah 34. Subhanahu wa ta'ala punished the same people after they went away from subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up today, and those in the future. And I will get into another topic next week, inshallah ta'ala. And then, I'll get back. I want to get back to going to the fundamentals of our aqidah, of our faith again. And I'll start off, inshallah, with the kalimat Allah, meaning the words of subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is important. And I'll cover that, because we should get back to learning our iman as Muslims, our faith, because that's important for us. Without that, we cannot be Muslims. So I wanted to start back on that here next week, inshallah ta'ala, and everything. And my brothers and sisters, wherever you may be, please be safe out there. We know this, they have a new virus. It's starting to run rampant in Europe. I heard it's made its way in the United States now. It's starting to make its way here in Africa. We know it's in South Africa now. We heard that Nigeria is starting to get hit with it. We have not in Morocco as of yet, but I heard it's here, but I'm not sure. But everywhere you are now today, please be careful, Muslims, of the virus. If you do get it, you do everything you can to protect yourself from it. And if you do get it, you do everything you can to make yourself well from it. And die as a Muslim, meaning if you get sick, you keep up your dhikr Allah. Even if you, to the point you can't pray anymore, where you're so incapacitated, you keep, if you remember this, you make dhikr, keep making dhikr to subhanahu wa ta'ala, and die as a Muslim. And don't transgress from that, because you got ill or something like that, and you start making comments. And we're human beings, things like this can happen, and you have to keep your faith deep. If you keep your faith deep now, you won't regress from this, even if you're sick. So be careful of that virus, my brothers and sisters, because it is, this new virus is coming. It's no joke. Be very mindful of it, and be careful of that. And be careful when you go to the masjids and places like this, and that you could catch it from somebody, because you don't know who's got the antibodies, and you could catch it. So just be very careful, be mindful, and follow what your scholars and your leaders have said about this issue. You follow their guide and listen to what they say. If they say the masjid is open, if you want to go, you go to it, but follow with the guidelines. But again, the ruling has been of this. If you Muslims, like person like me, I'm an older person. I don't go now because it's too dangerous for me. I'm an older person. I fear that I could catch it. Now, if I go if I'm running all over the city, then I cannot do that. I can't play that game. I'm just giving you some things, my brothers and sisters, about this. If you have the virus, but you have fear that you get the virus, okay, you don't go to the masjid. But if you go and start running around the town, you go visit everywhere, you're running all over the place. I'm not talking about this where you go to the bank to get money for your family. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you making your rounds through the city like you normally do, but you don't go to masjid. You can't do that. You got to go to the masjid now, because since you're out among the people. But if you're like me, where you go and you stay in the house most of the time, and I venture out only to get money or something, for the family, or a few things or something for the family, that's it. I come home. I don't go and visit. I don't go running all over the place. I don't do that. So I stay here. That's okay. So I'm just giving you some brothers brothers, sisters, some things of issue of fiqh, and plus the fatwa order was issued about this issue of the masjids and so forth and so on. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I'll stop here now. And thank you, my dear brothers and sisters, for showing up. Sister Amina, Brother Isaac, Brother King, Kaki, I know I'm probably butchering it. Please forgive me for that. And those who show up in the future. And I'll give you the beautiful words of Jannah. Salamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.